Hey, you guys, it's Dr. Deb, and welcome to my 1 o'clock Thursday Eastern Time talk that I always give. Are you there? Tell me if you're there, please. All right, this is like my third time that I'm doing a live on YouTube. Yes, thank you. All right, good. Who else is there? Oops, nobody yet. Okay, I see. There's a number there. All right, I am going to wait about a minute for people to get on. It is Thursday. I'm Dr. Deb Hirschhorn. If you've never been in my Facebook group, then the reason why you don't know me is because that's where everyone else has seen me speak and so forth. But what I want for you is to be comfortable, settle in. Today's talk is called How to Believe in Yourself. I just realized I forgot to remind people 15 minutes ago. Oh, well, it's on everyone to remember the time. It's just the way it is. Okay, how to believe in yourself when you don't. How to believe in yourself when the reality is that you've been crushed for so long in your marriage that you just lost a sense of your own power. Not only that, you probably lost a sense of who you are. And that's a problem, right? What I want you to know, and this is super important, how many of you read the post that I did on gaslighting in the Facebook group? And it's also in my blog, and it's also been sent out by email. And half of it appears on Google Local as well if you live in my area. So it's all over the place. How many read that post? Okay, guys, here's the deal. If you didn't read it, I'm going to explain something that I've never mentioned before, but I think it's really important. The concept of going to decide to paint your house or just paint a room. What do you do with the wall? The first thing you've got to do is put a coat of, oh, by the way, you all can comment. And I love to see comments. I'd love to see subscribes so that you subscribe to this channel. Right now, these lives are all being privately just for whoever shows up here because I am going to be releasing a whole set of videos on my topic, which is IFS, how we do therapy, how I help heal people from every trauma they've ever had so that they can communicate well in their marriage. But that's a whole other topic. So anyway, if you subscribe, it lets YouTube know that what I have to say is valuable. So anyway, let's get back to painting the wall. You want to paint your wall. What do you put on it? There's a bunch of you on here. Come on. What do you put on the wall to make the paint stick? Nobody's painted their wall. Either that or everyone's afraid to. Yes, thank you. You put a coat of primer on the wall. And the reason you do is to make the paint. Thank you. You put the primer on the wall to make the paint stick. Now, I am using that as a great metaphor for why people end up in abusive marriages, because they got primed. Unfortunately, they got primed in childhood. Your childhood didn't have to be abusive in the same way as the marriage. The marriage could have been 10 times worse. It doesn't matter. In order for your wall to look good, you don't need a lot of primer. You do need a lot of paint. Most people do it at least twice. They go this way and then they go this way, right? But the amount of primer, not so much. It's just enough. So you could have, for example, had like I had a parent who was hard of hearing. My mom was hard of hearing, And she didn't hear the baby that I used to be cry in the middle of the night, so she didn't pick me up. My father did. And I became very close to my father, not so much my mother. That's priming. That's priming the wall. That's a start. It's not the biggest deal on earth. But then when I was a school child and I came home with grades that were like 3 A's and a B or 4 A's and a B, that wasn't good enough. What happened to the other A? And my parents literally used those words. They loved me in their own way. They didn't act like they didn't love me. But that's another bit of primer on the wall, getting me ready and getting you guys ready for a marriage that could be abusive. Now, it turns out mine was not as bad as other people's. But that got me ready to help you, I guess, even though this was the field I wanted to be in forever. But everything works in a certain way, right? The primer idea is super important because really it's there back in your childhood when you lost your sense of self. When you lost your sense somewhere along the line. Sometimes people have very happy childhoods until the parents get a divorce, and then there's a remarriage, and then they're 14 years old. They're not babies anymore. They're going into high school soon, or they're already in high school, middle school, and they're at that point, their voice got shut down. It could be. I'm not saying it would. It could be the second marriage was very wonderful. Who knows? But the point I'm making is that's another way you get that primer. It doesn't always have to be in early childhood. But you got the primer to lose the ability to express yourself. And you start to not even know who you are. You start to wonder what you think because your whole life has been, or a lot of it has been spent interpreting what's going to fly with the people in your life so that you don't get your toes stepped on for saying the wrong thing. This is my idea of primer. So what happens when you have been in a highly abusive marriage or even a somewhat abusive marriage? Listen, we all build up that ability to tolerate abuse, which is not healthy. And so even a somewhat abusive marriage, in my opinion, is too much. Let me just interject the story of the two frogs to make that point. If you've heard it, forgive me. One frog pops into a big pot on the stove of boiling water, and the frog goes, ah, and jumps out because it's hot, it's boiling. The other frog pops into another pot where the water has not yet gotten to a boil. It wasn't even turned on. And the frog is very happy. This feels good. And it gets turned on. And as the heat starts to develop, the frog goes, wow, it's getting a little warm. All right. Not so comfortable, but all right. As the heat gets hotter and hotter, it gets to a point where the frog has developed a tolerance for it. And that poor frog can't jump out anymore when it starts to boil. And whoever eats that stuff can have frog soup. It doesn't sound good to me, but maybe somebody else likes it. In any case, unfortunately, that's what also happens in marriages. If the abuse that you suffered in your childhood was something you managed to tolerate, you're going to be managing to tolerate whatever level of abuse you get in your marriage. And by the way, when I use the word abuse, I do not use the word in the sense that the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which I don't even like or agree with or use, has. Instead, I use the concept of abuse in the way which goes along with trauma. Abuse and trauma are things that happen to people without necessarily an intent to harm, but they are harmful, and that's my key. If you were harmed in your childhood, I call it abuse. Emotionally harmed, socially harmed, psychologically harmed, intellectually harmed, physically, sexually. That prepares you, that's the primer for that level or more of a level in your marriage. So you've already lost yourself, and at some point you wake up and you say, as so many people have who join my group, okay, Dr. Deb, what do I do? How do I get myself to believe in myself? I've already been crushed. I have been crushed. Well, you're not crushed. You're not crushed because, and this gets to the key point I said, there's going to be something that may surprise you in the little notes that I put down to describe this talk. Many people think, I got to get out of this marriage, and then I'll find a nice person who won't treat me that way and who will believe in me. Warning, red flag, don't think that way, and I'll tell you why. Because the real source of the problem, which started in your childhood, is that you lost the belief in yourself already before you even got married. And you had needy parts in you that were looking for the spouse that you wanted to reinstate that. The problem is that usually two people find each other because they have some deep emotional, spiritual thing in common, i.e., they probably had abuse and trauma in their history as well. And so they are just as needy as you are. They may not act needy. They could be acting real tough. It doesn't matter. Underneath it, they missed the same things you missed. That validation, valuing, feeling like you're wonderful just as you are, as Mr. Rogers used to say. I used to watch that. Because you need that to come from somewhere, but it's never going to come from this person because they're missing it too. And nor should it. Okay, guys, there's a whole bunch of you on here. You tell me, who should it come from? If you lost that validation from within yourself, who should be giving you that validation? Should it have been the parents that didn't? Can you resurrect the dead if they died? What can you do? Even if they're old now and you want them to and they say they're sorry and it means a lot to you, does that restore your belief in yourself? Somebody answer. I need an answer. I don't know if there's a lag time on YouTube the way there is on Facebook. Thank you. No, that doesn't do it. The only person who can restore the belief in yourself is, comment, guys. Yes, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I love you. Thank you. Yes, it has to come from within yourself. Only you can restore that to yourself, especially when you tried to get it from the person you married and it didn't work. You have to learn your lesson. It's got to come from you. But how? How do you do that? Now we get back to the title, right? Okay, it can't come from your parents because it's too long ago that they messed you up. And it can't come from the spouse you're married to because they can't do it. And if you divorce them and remarry, it's guaranteed it's not going to come from the new person either. I'm sure you know that 75% of second marriages don't work. Okay? How do you do it? Now I want to tell you about this little thing which separates you from parts of yourself in a very helpful way. And if you haven't seen any of my stuff, just kind of don't hold your breath, but very soon I'm going to start releasing a set of videos here on YouTube, which will walk you through in great depth my process. But I'm going to try to tell you in a short way right now my process and hope that it makes sense. And I need for you to interrupt me and tell me if it doesn't. And if you don't see this now and you see it later, please comment it doesn't make sense. That's okay. I need to know whether I'm reaching you, because why am I doing this if it's not making sense, right? It's not your fault, it's my fault. Very clearly, my responsibility to make sense. So here it goes. We all have a soul. Our soul knows who we are. Our soul believes in ourselves. Our soul was born that way. And here's a proof. Babies cry. They don't expect to be ignored. They don't expect to be neglected. They don't expect to be, God forbid, hurt for crying. Babies cry because it's in them to express themselves. Reach out to the world. Let the world know that I have needs, doggone it, and you better take care of them. That's our soul at work, expressing ourselves, being who we are. And as we grow older, until the time that someone kind of shuts us down, that is who we are. But when we get shut down, it doesn't go away. That soul that we are doesn't go away. It goes underground for safety. So who's out there? Who is out there? These are our defenders, our protectors, the parts of us that jump up automatically to take care of us so that we can survive. And some part will cry, and some part will be our parent's best friend and be a goody-goody so that the parent loves us. And another part will be tough and say, no way, I don't care what you say, and all that stuff. Some kids will jump out the window when they're 14 and go run out in the night and hang out on street corners and all that good stuff. Not so good stuff. But those are our protectors, and they are good. Actually, they are good because they keep us alive. All the quote unquote bad things that we learned to do as a child and may still be doing, like yelling and screaming, aren't bad. They kept us alive, and inside of us, those protectors believe they need to keep doing that to continue to keep us alive. All right. How does that tie in with getting back underneath all those parts to believing in yourself? The answer is this. When you can recognize that you have a self, that you have a soul, and it's good and beautiful and pure and untarnished and untainted, when you recognize that, the next step in this process is to feel a little separation from your defenders and protectors, from all these parts. How do you do that? Well, one of the videos that I am creating has 5 ways to get to self. So just hang in there. But I'm going to share what someone told me today. She took 3 days for herself. She did her work, but she also had her inner conversation. A pep talk, maybe. I'm not sure what exactly it was, but it was cleansing for her. And she got a little separation from these parts of her that were angry. Yesterday, I was working actually on one of my videos right here on my computer, and a sad feeling came over me for a reason, a perfectly legitimate reason. But I had done everything that I could possibly do to solve that problem. And I kept feeling sad and working and sad. And finally I said, you know what? I need to have a little conversation with my parts. I got up from my computer and I took a little stride up and down the hall. It's air conditioned. I don't know how it is by you, but it's really hot in New York these days. I took a walk up and down the hall talking to my sad part. And I said, look, right now is not the time to be sad. You could have done that X number of years ago when this and this and this happened. Do you not agree with that? And my sad part had to agree. I said, so let's just forget this. And I sat down at my computer, not 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, and I was fine. And I'm fine now. And I'm not sad. And I woke up fine. Why? Because I have mastered the art of separating from my parts. How did I do that? Well, I've been practicing. That's why I can teach you this, because I have been practicing. When you separate from your parts and yourself takes what Dr. Richard Schwartz calls self-leadership, and he is the creator of this form of therapy, when you do that, yourself starts to shine. And the more leadership yourself takes over all your parts, the more it shines. Now, what does this leadership mean? I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. I've seen this in so many places and it's sad. I don't like it. It doesn't mean booting off the island your parts. It doesn't mean being angry at your parts. Every part in you meant well, even critical parts, alcoholic parts, drinking parts, raging parts. They seem bad and the behavior is bad and no one would disagree with that. But they aren't bad. They're little kids. They came into your life at the age of 4 or 6 or 14 or whatever, but they're kids, immature kids, trying to help you. And what you do when you're in self is exactly what I did last night with my sad part and my client did whenever it was with the angry part. You talk to them. You say, it's going to be okay. I'm fine. Now you can say to me, well, what if you really don't feel fine? What if there's like a discrepancy, and this is very common with people, a feeling of a separation between what you know. I know I'm a good person. I've heard this so much. I just don't feel it. That's normal too, very normal. And the answer to that is you keep working on separating from the parts, because sometimes those parts have a reason to be clinging to this belief that they're not fine. There's something wrong with them. They're still crushed down. Now I'm going to give you a little secret, which is going to come way at the end of my series, but I'm going to give you a heads up here. There is another part that everyone has. A set of them, actually. They're not your protectors. They're your exiled inner children. And when I say exiled, you forgot that you have them. Those are the vulnerable parts of you, the sad parts, the parts that really were hurt and are desperate for you to hear their story and give them love. They're desperate to come out into the air and breathe. I know that sounds so kooky. The thing is, it works. Not only does it work, I myself heard Dr. Schwartz say to someone who he was working with, I promise I can help you heal. You will heal. Just go with me here. I promise are very strong words. I heard him say that just yesterday in a course I'm taking. And he has said it before, and I've heard it before. So what's the story here? How come? Well, if you really do have an untarnished soul, doesn't it make sense that sooner or later it should be able to lead you and help you be the person that you really are and need to be and want to be? Doesn't that make sense? If it's really untarnished. By the way, I want you to know that I first learned about this from Basil van der Kolk. Are you guys familiar with him? You should read this book. It's wonderful. And it's about trauma. And it's about the healing from trauma. He also recommended EMDR, which I took and I was doing, but my arm got tired. And it doesn't work as well on video, and I was doing it during the COVID days. So I like this better. One gets a better sense of who they are this way when you know all your parts and you recognize the role they play in your life, and you rescue your inner children. You hear them, you validate their story. No one ever did that before. Somebody wrote, yay, I love it. People write. Never heard of, Basil van der Kolk. Good, that's good. So I'm introducing you to someone. What was the name of the book? Thank you. The Body Keeps the Score. And the spelling of his name. Now, let me just say this. Why is it called The Body Keeps the Score? When you start, I love neuroscience. I love the brain. As you'll find out the more you hear me speak. When you start reading neuroscience stuff, what you learn is crazy. The information that our brain gets from the outside world starts in our body. Can you believe this? Our stomach clenches, our muscles tighten. And then something goes to the brain and tells the brain, warning, warning, warning. It's so automatic, we don't even realize it actually ends up starting in the brain. And then the brain reacts, oh boy, does it. So on a neuroscience level, what you're trying to do is heal through stopping and talking to the parts of yourself that are located all over your brain and body. And you can do that because the brain is very flexible. We call it plastic. It used to be people thought that everything in your brain was like hard as a rocket, not physically, but it was all like structured the way it was going to be forever. And that's just not true. Our brains take in new information all the time. So if we start the practice of separating from our parts and getting to know all these defenders, we can then take leadership, and that literally will change your brain. One more person. No, I got all the comments. Great. Any more comments? Good. Okay, so we are about to wrap up. And I just want to say, please, I said at the beginning, let YouTube know this is valuable by subscribing and tell your friends to watch it. I'm not making this public yet. I'm going to release it when I release all the other videos so they all come like one after the other in a nice way. And then I'll start making these lives public. Right now, if you have the link, then you can come back and rewatch it. So please tell your friends. I want to know if my talk today was helpful. I want to know if you have questions. I want to know if you have an argument for me. I want to know if you have a specific case you want me to mention here, an answer to a question. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Great. Love it. Anyone else? Thank you. Good. And you can keep watching it. It's right here. It's so easy to get to. And if you lose good, thank you. But miss the first 10 minutes. So that's what I'm saying. If you have the link, if you found out about it through an email, then just check the link again. If you found out about it through my blog, just go there, drdeb.com. My blog's in chronological order, so it's the last thing. Right. I haven't posted them in the library because they're already on Facebook, which is open to the world. My library is only for when I used to be on Zoom. I totally gave up Zoom because I'm really trying to start this Facebook thing. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Great. I love it. Okay, you guys, have a great week, and you can comment to reach me. You can go to my website, drdeb.com, and do the contact page. Hopefully it works. At some point it didn't. Then I had it fixed. I hope it still works. You can, if you're on my email list, you can write me back right there, drdeb at drdeb.com. If you want to get on my email list, you can go to my website, and on the first page is a little video of me, and right under it, you can give me your email. And please, please subscribe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Take care, guys. Have a great week.